We need to talk. I'm going to do the structure of this video a bit different. Instead of 2 volume summaries and then discussion after, I'm going to do a volume summary, discussion, volume summary, discussion. Volume 8 is going to get the short end of the stick in this video, okay? It was always meant to be. Let's just dig in, shall we? Volume 7 opens with a flashback conversation between a very young Origio and Kiefer. Origio was the one who got Kiefer into studying water magic, who told him that if something is scary, you should embrace it. In the present day, Kiefer finally wakes up from his 4-day coma, and Ollie is right there to say, hey, we have to talk. Kiefer momentarily freaks out about the girls because the last thing he remembered was everything from the cave, but Ollie tells him everything's fine, everyone's safe, everything, for the most part, worked out okay. But what is the deal with Coco here? Is she a student that you have decided to take on out of the goodness of your heart? Or is she just a means to an end? Is she just your clue to get you into the brim caps? Very excellent panel here. Always saying, be straight with me, and Kiefer giving him a look. Meanwhile, Coco and Belle are still having their conversation. Coco's like, why would you want to keep me away from Kiefer? What do you think is wrong with him? And Belle tells her he is entangled with the brim caps in ways that we don't even know. If you were to become my apprentice, I could keep you safe. And he tells Coco that many years ago, when he was out with the Knights Morales and they were trying to track down some of the brimmed caps in the forest of Thristis, which, if you remember, a witch tried to resurrect the dead in that Silverwood forest, they found something. A hastily buried coffin in the roots of a silverwood tree. And in that coffin, a child who was missing an eye and all his memories. All he could say was that a witch took his eye from him. Nobody was sure what to do with this kid. They were just gonna wipe his mind and send him back out into the world. But Belle stepped in and he said no. He offered his hand to Kiefer and he said, will you study the way of the witch with me? But things were never easy for Kiefer. Even as a child, he could not let go of the mysteries of his past and what happened to him, and he never really fit in at the Great Hall. Belle tells us that Kiefer abandoned his search when he finally made it to the Tower of the Tomes. And Coco assumes, oh, he must have found what he was looking for then. He must have found the answers. And Belle said, no, I believe he found out that he couldn't get his eye and his memories back without forbidden magic, and he would lose everything he had if he went down that path. And that's what caused him to give up the search and to abandon hope. Now, that's what Belle believes. That is not necessarily the truth. That is his perspective. And I believe that it's probably mostly accurate, but we'll have to wait and see. This is not at all what Coco wanted to hear. She's like, what if forbidden magic is the only choice you have? What am I supposed to do then? And Belle just tells her, when you started to learn magic, did you not first learn that magic is not a power to just grant every wish your heart desires? Back in the hospital, Origio tells Kiefer that while he was fixing up his glasses, he saw the spell that is inscribed into them. The black side has a spell that kind of just obscures his empty eye socket, but the clear side has, in clear ink, a spell for blocking light and aiding vision. We finally see Kiefer's missing eye. It's pretty nasty. Someone gouged it out viciously. Ollie's putting the pieces together. He's a smart man. If Kiefer is losing his last remaining eyesight, that would explain why he has picked up this search that he allegedly abandoned a while back. And it's why he has been acting so crazy around the brim caps. It's why he took in Coco. It's why he so neglectfully rushed away from his students in Romanon. But before that conversation can go any further, a smoke sculpture of Belle bursts into the room and is like, hey, Coco ran out the window way and she's going to the Tower of the Domes. Now, this was interesting to me because on first read, I kind of felt like Belle was lying here, and that instead of Coco running away and doing this on her own, he had kind of manipulated her into it, almost to set a trap for Kiefer to test if he really is her teacher, if he does care about her, if she's only a means to an end. I don't know if I still think that. I don't know if Belle would be so cold as to do that. But that was definitely my first thought. So Kiefer, even though he's injured, puts all his clothes back on and runs out there to try to help Coco. Coco is in way over her head. She ran in there with no plan and now has no idea what to do. She can't cross the lake because of the sea serpents. And by the time Kiefer gets there, the lake monsters are in an uproar. Ollie's staying back at the window way entrance to protect it, because if anything should happen to it, if it should get damaged, then that's a big problem for the Great Hall. I don't know. This page here, I feel like kind of supports my idea that Belle did this on purpose. He says, I've had my concerns that Kiefer would go to any lengths to take back the things which he lost, but the way he's soared off now, it's as though he's willing to risk his drawing hand to ensure the child's safety. And Ollie kind of gives him this look. And then Belle continues, if he's pushing his own injuries from mind, I've been grappling with the wrong fear. It's not his dedication to her I should be concerned about, but his disregard for his own safety. Somewhere along the way, he's finally donned a teacher's visage. Kiefer finds Coco hiding out on a ledge by the lake, and he tells her everything's all right, it's going to be okay. And she's like, is it? Is it though? I'm so scared. The more I learn about magic, the more uneasy it makes me. I don't know what's right anymore. I don't know if I can believe all the things that everyone tells me. I don't know if I can even have hope to save my mom. Should I have ever even been a witch? And Kiefer just reaches down and hugs her. He just holds her, and he tells her everything that he would have wished to hear at that age. The tower doesn't have all the answers, but there's hope. He tells Coco that she has all the things she needs. She's been practicing and learning and innovating, and just as long as she has her imagination and her ingenuity, there's 1,000 different things she could discover, 1,000,000 different ways to solve her problems. Kiefer says there's always hope. That's just the kind of witches we are. He groups her in with him. And then the sea monsters are back at it again. Kiefer gives Coco his book of spells, and one spell enlarges the book, so it's big enough that they can both sit or stand on it. And then another page contains an empty ring, and he has Coco just draw one big arrow in it. Her specialty, straight lines. He says you can either go towards the Tower of the Tomes, or you can go back to the Great Hall. Which one will you choose? And with that, this drama queen steps off the edge of the book and just flies out into the lake. He's taken on these creatures left and right, and he's having a good time doing it, even though he's injured. And he's trusting Coco to make her own decisions, and he's going to be there to support her no matter what she chooses. And what she chooses is to go straight ahead and to pick him up. She rams him with this book at like 80 miles an hour when he's fresh out of the hospital. That can't feel good. But she says, I realized I wasn't ready for the tower, but I don't want to go back to the Great Hall without you. I want to do this with you guiding me and being my teacher and telling me that I'm doing a good job. This is Coco's third way forward. This, I think, is representative of so many of the themes of the story. Something neither of the brimmed caps nor the pointed caps, but a complete new thing instead. And so Kiefer says, all right, we'll go, all of us, and we'll go home and study at my atelier. And I love that. I think there's so much writing on this word, my. He doesn't say it's our home, he says it's my home. This is what he has built for himself after losing everything, having no idea who he is or what happened to him, being rejected and out of place in the Great Hall. He went out and he made his own home and his own family where he can be loved. And they're flying back to the window way, and Kiefer tells Orugio to cast that one spell. You know the one I'm talking about. So Orugio inscribes something onto a pebble and just hooks it as far as he possibly can. And it blows up. It blows up this sea serpent. It's so crazy. He said, I cast regular missile. And they make it through the window way just in time. Ollie closes it right in the sea serpent's face. And all's well that ends well. Well, not exactly. Not if you're Ollie. You have to chew them out while drying them off. And then Kiefer has to chew Belle out for trying to poach his student. Belle isn't even mad. I think he's just happy that his kid's talking to him again. And Ollie, ever watchful, bends down to ask Coco, are you happy with the way things are? If you want a different master, we can arrange that for you. She says, nope, we're all good. But inside, she's thinking, I only feel this relief because he told me there's hope. If he had said that there were things that magic can't do, like what Belle told her, but there isn't any hope, she would have felt complete despair. We get this image of her walking alongside Kefri. On the reverse, she's walking alongside Egwene, and off to the side, Despair, she walks alone, with her cap abandoned in the sand. Later in Belle's Silverwood Grove, we see his current apprentice. It's Rilifin, Riche's brother. He must have intervened in that awful situation with their teacher and took in Really on his own. It's pretty easy to see that Really is not over what happened to him and that he blames himself for not being there for his sister. And he didn't even really want to see his sister when she was there in the Great Hall because he was ashamed. He was afraid and thought that she wouldn't want to have anything to do with him because he didn't or couldn't help her out in her time of need. And Belle reassures him that that's not the case and tells him a little bit about silverwood trees. It takes root in places it knows it will find true comfort. But with that one requirement filled, it will grow in any climate, from barren wasteland at the edge of the world to on a bed of deep sea. And really says it chooses where it wants to live. That sounds very much like what a person might do. And then Belle's thinking of Kefri and how Kefri said, my home, my atelier, how he chose where he wanted to live. And Belle's just thinking, I hope he does not, with his own hands, tear down that which he has managed to build. Silverwood trees personified yet again. I'm on to something here. I've been saying this for quite a while. Those things are either sentient or they are people or people are them. I haven't quite figured it out. I don't know if they're turning people into trees or turning trees into people or if the trees were once people, but this is just more fuel on that fire. Also, Kefri being likened to these trees. He was found buried under a tree. More on that later. And now we get to my favorite chapter of the whole story. Oh, chapter 39, you are so loved. Oh, Rugio, my goat, my beloved. He really was the craziest dark horse of this story. Like, I just did not expect him to be so loved, both within the story and by all the readers. Like, everyone adores him. It's really interesting framing of this chapter because we end chapter 38 with Ollie and Kefri about to have a serious conversation about a lot of the things that have just transpired. And then chapter 39 cuts to what Ollie was up to back in the Great Hall when Kefri was still in the hospital. He is approached by Highheart, this jock baddie, and Highheart's apprentice, Juji, who is just adorable with her little bubble braids. I love her so much. Highheart's a big fan of Ulrujo. He just, with Kefri out in the hospital, everybody wants a slice of Ollie's pie. Everyone wants to take a bite. They are just hounding him. Highheart recruits Ulrujo for a revision of a task they had done before for a what was he, a baron, a duke? They did a light up floor in his ballroom, and now he wants to change the whole thing blue for his daughter's wedding. And Ollie's like, that's way too much work. We can't do that in one day. We just see these little panels that tell us how much everybody love him. Old ladies love him. Old men love him. Little kids love him. Young ladies love him. Young men love him. The Duke, oh wait, Marquise? Is that what he is? Marquis? The Marquis is a little upset because he's like, I know you've been offering your services to the commoners for free, and I'm trying to pay you to do something, and you don't want to do it. And Ollie's like, it's not that simple. We can't just redo the entire floor. And then this conversation happens between Ulrujo and Highheart and Juji about apprentices and why Ulrujo doesn't have any apprentices. And he says that as a master, whatever comes up, if you are not prepared to choose your apprentices above everything else every single time, you have no business taking on an apprentice. And that's when I was like, oh, he is mad. He is mad at Kefri. But Juji says something along the lines of, lots of things can be important in life. So if I was a master and I felt like I couldn't choose my students all the time, I would ask for help from a friend. And this really gets to Ollie. Then he is approached by the daughter of the Marquis, the one who's getting married, who all this hullabaloo is for. She tells him, our family's color is blue, my fiance's color is red. My father wants this done to have the whole floor in blue to wash out the red of the other family and kind of humiliate them and make us look important. There's no need for you to do this. I don't really want this done. But then Ollie, ever service minded, kneels down in front of her in the witch pose with his hands clasped to his side. He says, I can't refuse this request because it was a formal request for witch help. But I think there's a way that I can make everybody happy here. And he does. They only replace the tiles in the center where there'll be dancing with the blue ones. So, as Ollie says, when someone wants to step out of the spotlight, they can. He's really such a charmer, too. He dances with this woman to demonstrate the work that they've done. And she even kind of makes a pass at him. Not romantically, but she's like the leaders of old would often have a witch at their side. And I would offer you that position if you would take it. Ollie graciously declines, and they skedaddle out of here. On their way out, though, our three witches are approached by a woman with a very frazzled looking boy who has his hands over his ears. And she's saying, my boy has really good hearing. I think he has the magic gift. You should take him in and train him. This boy clearly just has like autism or some kind of auditory processing disorder. And the witches have to turn this woman down. Ollie reaches out his hand, and Highheart, who up until now has been very jovial and fun, grabs his wrist and gives him this face. What are you doing? If you take his hand, you violate the principles. Ollie says, no, I was not going to take his hand. I'm just going to give him a scarf to dampen the noise. He draws a spell on the scarf and gives it to the boy, and apologizes that there isn't anything else that he can do. And that's the end of that chapter. We come back to Kefri and Ollie's conversation on the hillside. All of this, the very serious nature of what Kefri has done or failed to do, and Ollie's reasonable anger with him, and the serious implications of Kefri violating the principles, all this mess. And the thing that Ollie says to Kefri is, I want you to let me help you. I'm taking off my glasses. I've seen enough. What Juji said really got to him. He is thinking, Kefri has so much on his plate with his 4 apprentices and, Coco being an outsider and this whole fiasco, and he didn't come to me for help. He, blames himself for not being someone that Kefri can rely on. That's crazy. That's so crazy. He's so good. Kefri wasn't really expecting something like this either. He's like, I thought you would be mad at me. And Ollie's like, oh, I am. I am mad at you. I'm angry that you abandon your apprentices, that you keep pushing yourself. You have me so worried. I thought I might faint. I'm also angry that you didn't come to me for help. And I'm not even angry at you for that. I'm angry at myself. I haven't been someone you can come to. And Kefri practically jumps up at this to deny that. He's like, no, that's not that's not what's going on. Ollie says, Kefri, you're a good teacher. Coco wants to study under you. Don't misuse that. Just keep being a good teacher. And I will be there for you. But I need you to tell me why you're picking at this thread again. Why you're after the brim caps. Kefri tells him, I'm happy. I'm happy here with our home and my students and you. And I'm so happy that I feel like it's fake. I can't let this go. The witch who stole my past will also steal my future. This is going to be taken from me as well. He admits that not a single person, not even Belle, knows about his failing eyesight. It's been happening for a few years. He has been experiencing chronic pain and migraines, and it's only a matter of time before he loses his sight completely. What the Brimcaps have been up to in Thristis must be stopped. And Ollie says, How do you know their plan? I thought you forgot everything. I thought all your memories were wiped. Kefri turns around and gives him this look. Okay, I was reading this at like midnight. Oh, the chill that ran up my spine, down my spine, the chill that ran through my spine. It's not right. And then here's what Kefri says, and I think this wording is very important. He says, "Do you remember the last adventure we embarked upon as boys?" And Ollie says, "Yeah, we went to the Tower of the Tomes and only you made it inside." This is my bear trap, okay? I'm setting this bear trap. You heard it here first. That's what Ollie thinks happened. That is not what actually happened. Moving on. Kefri tells Ollie, when I was in the tower, I learned some things. I read some things that jogged some memories. The brimmed caps are not after old magic, they're after something new, and I was the trial run. He says, I do believe you would still help me, knowing all there is to know. But I cannot have that. Kefri takes off his hat, unfolds the front flap, revealing the memory erasure spell, puts the hat on Orugio, and takes his memories away. Oh my god. I don't even cut the cameras. As Zahro said, pass the drowning lessons on repeat. I'm not driving. It's not right. I shouldn't even be witnessing this. I feel like an intruder in this scene. Kefri says, I'm sorry. You always choose to forgive me. He only erased the things pertaining to his secret. We don't really get to see his face after this happens. For a good few pages. He sits there next to Ollie's sleeping body. And the absolute tonal whiplash from this, because then all the girls come out and they're like, hey, dinner time. Wow, look at the sky. Look at all these beautiful shooting stars. We're just one big happy family, aren't we? The arrival of the shooting stars means that Silver Eve is approaching. Silver Eve is the biggest festival for witches. Very exciting upcoming stuff. And on our very last page, Tarta shows up. He has flown over with his new sylph shoes, and he asks if everyone would want to help him run a stall at Silver Eve. So that's that. We really don't have a lot of time to sit with any of it. Boom, this happens out of nowhere, and boom, we're just gonna keep pretending it didn't happen. Let's just say it how it is. My bear traps have been insane. Okay, I've been calling a lot of this stuff before it has happened. Now, I didn't think that it was this extreme, but I said back in volume 3, I think that Kefri being so willing to wipe Mr. Mloa's memory tells us that he has done this before, often enough that it does not really weigh on his conscience anymore. Now, I just thought, okay, maybe there's been like 5 or 6 times where he has felt like he had to do this and bend the rules to keep something under wraps. Like, that's what I was thinking. I was not thinking he's been brain wiping his boy best friend on the regular. Because what the hell? Why would I think that? That being said, I stand with my canceled wife. Now, this was particularly funny because I did read ahead on this volume a full week because I was going on my camping trip. And I was just sitting there shell-shocked, and I had nobody to talk to except for some of the spoiler readers, and I was just sitting there like that one image of the guy. You know the image. Let me go through some of my notes. I think up until this volume, only the girls have ever called Orugio Ollie, so I thought that was just a nickname the girls had for him. But then Kefri calls him Ollie several times in this volume, and I was like, oh, I do see. I see the art with my eyeballs. As soon as I saw them pull up that coffin from the roots of that tree, I knew Kefri was in there. And I knew he almost drowned in there. They didn't even have to open up the box. I just knew. And then they opened up the box, and then I saw it. And then I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the panel is the lid of the coffin. Oh, it's so crazy. Something to note, Kefri and Ollie's tassel swap occurred before the Tower of the Tomes. I'm thinking a few things here. In There's one panel, we see there's an eye in the roots of a silverwood tree. Okay, Kiefer's missing an eye. We know, thanks to Sasaran, that eyes can be taken out of a body and transplanted into something else. So, question number one, where is Kiefer's eye? Has it been grafted into this tree? What happens when you graft a part of a person into a tree, or graft part of a tree onto a person? Now, for a while, I was thinking that, like, maybe Kiefer isn't even a real boy at all. Did they, like, artificially create him out of a tree? But I don't think that's true. Chapter 40 does tell us that Kiefer was able to remember stuff from before he was discovered. Because I was thinking, oh, did they assume his memory was wiped because he was literally, like, just created? But that can't be the case. He is a real boy. Now, whether or not he's an alive boy, I do love this theory. I think there's some holes in it, but I think I'm onto something here. What were they doing in Thristis? Trying to reanimate the dead. What if Kiefer was not near death when they found him in that coffin, but rather just came back to life? The thing that pokes holes in this theory for me is that Kiefer says they're after something new. The Brimcaps are doing something new in Thristis. And necromancy in Thristis is very, very old. The other thing I'm thinking is, like, human sacrifice, maybe? Like, they were feeding him to that tree to do what? I don't know. For all I know, trees and humans are the same. I've been saying this, okay? It's like, you know how, like, in Over the Garden Wall, the people turn into trees and then the trees get harvested for their oil to feed the beast? I'm not saying it's that, but that's what's been on my mind. Okay, wait. Before we get too far into it, I do want to talk about Rugio's thoughts on not becoming a teacher, because I had kind of completely misread this at first. I'm so used to, in stories, in media, just in general, being presented with the tropes of, like, oh, I don't really want kids. I don't think I'd be a good parent, by someone who obviously would be a good parent. And they just have to learn, like, oh, I have these hangups about myself, but actually it's okay, and I will be a good parent, and I should be a parent because that's what's expected of everyone as you grow up and grow old. And their arc is, like, learning that, like, they do have it in them and they should become a parent. Okay? All my homies hate that. I don't think that's, I mean, okay. I'm sure that is the case for some people. However, when that's kind of the only line of thinking that you get presented time and time again in media, that becomes a huge problem. I was, like, kind of reading this wrong because I was thinking, like, instead of Ollie not wanting apprentices and never having apprentices, instead of that coming from a place of, like, confidence and knowing himself and what he wants and what he would choose and what he's capable of, I was thinking as that comes from maybe a place of insecurity, because we've seen throughout, like, the entire previous volume that he's a very good teacher. He is very good with his kids. Yeah, in my notes, I said I was reading it wrong at first, and I couldn't tell if his apprehension about students was coming from a place of knowing himself and knowing exactly what he wants to pursue in life, or if it was from a place of insecurity about his ability to teach or interface with kids. Then rereading it, I could tell it comes from a place of security in himself. And I love that so much because stories have almost trained readers to see a character saying, I don't want this thing for myself that most people agree is a good thing to want, as a setup for the character learning that they can and should do that thing, actually. But as someone who works with kids and also never wants to have any kids of my own, it was such a breath of fresh air to see Ollie saying, like, yes, I would be a good teacher slash parent if I had to parent. I will do right by these kids that are not mine, but I don't want kids. And that doesn't make him any less of a person or witch. And so Juji's words about, like, oh, I would have it both ways, I would just get a friend to help me out, that doesn't, like, change Ollie's mind about students. It just triggers it in his mind that, like, oh, I need to try to be a better support to Kiefer. I love him down. I love him the house down boots. And he dances. Okay? And he dances. He's such a charming character. And I really didn't expect that. I think because his introduction is as someone who is, like, gruff and aloof, that I thought he would be more of, like, a socially awkward kind of person. And I'm so fascinated. I love it when we get a character introduction that is contrary to who the character actually is. It's not like we're unveiling hidden depths in someone. It's like, no, you just got off on the wrong foot with this person, and now you get to see who they really are. Like, he was gruff and angry and pissed off at Kiefer in their first interaction, and for good reason. He's not usually like that, though. Like, every scene after proves that wrong. He is kind, he is generous, he is humble. His job is to help people and to please people, and he's very good at it, and he loves doing it. Okay, now onward to chapter 40. So I said I was going to follow up on the Tower of the Tomes and things as Ollie remembers them. And so when Ollie's like, only you made it inside, I don't think that's what happens at all. I think they both made it in, learned something so severe that Ollie knowing, even just the knowing puts him in danger, and Kiefer had to wipe his mind. Kiefer is divulging a bunch of secrets. He says he was the trial run. He spills so much tea that he has to wipe Ollie's memory, but we still don't actually know anything. He didn't actually tell us much at all. He just says he was part of some experiment, some evil new magic. Kiefer's secrets are so dangerous that to some degree it warrants this illegal magic. Not necessarily in like a cognito-hazard way, but something where just the knowing is a risk. I don't think Kiefer would do this unless he thought it was absolutely necessary. Like, Kiefer says to Ollie, like, I believe you would help me if you knew. And yet Ollie is just not allowed to know. He wants to be able to trust Ollie, but he can't. Is there some kind of curse or spell that forces him to stay silent? Or like he can't even talk about it? Or is it just such a huge problem because Kiefer is a victim of forbidden magic? And as we saw with the knights and like the threat of them going after Uini, they treat victims of forbidden magic kind of the same as perpetrators. It would be just like a really, really bad situation for Kiefer if anybody were to find out. He'd have everything taken from him again and his memory wiped. Maybe that's it. Let's talk about the blocking of this scene too. The conversation takes place on a slope. Let it be known that Kiefer is already several inches taller than Orugio, and he's positioned at the high point of the slope, so he's even taller. Throughout their conversation, he'll take flight and land, and he's very flighty in every sense of the word. And so he's putting himself like even higher up, even further away from Ollie. There's one point at which the wind shifts direction dramatically, and it just makes Kiefer look so scary in ways that we've never seen before. He's framed as so much bigger than Ollie in this scene. And Ollie doesn't do anything to fight back when Kiefer physically overpowers him. He grabs him, puts the hat over his face, which with the flap down, it blocks Ollie's face. It obscures the face of the victim, not the caster. The framing's a little hard to see because everything happens so quick, but he yanks Ollie forward, and then it looks like he falls down on top of him, like he pounces on him and they fall down together. As I've been observing throughout this whole story, Kiefer is very careful or aware of like touch and body language. And so it's really scary to see him like this, just pouncing, overpowering like that. The physical aggression from him combined with the I don't know, with the intimacy of a mind wipe is, not gonna lie, kind of sexual assault coded. And that just adds like a really crazy layer to all of this. And I have to wonder, why did Kiefer tell Ollie all of this just to wipe his mind? I think it's such a strange thing to do, to be very honest and then just take it all back. Maybe it's to just start from a clean slate. If he's kind of cagey and tries to avoid the mind wipe and give non-answers, Ollie's going to keep coming back, keep sussing things out, keep asking him, right? I think maybe it's better for him to just tell all or tell some and wipe it and just have it all made clean. Although Zahra was laughing at me when I said this. We were talking on the phone. She was laughing at me when I said, like, why would he tell him all that just to wipe his mind? So I don't know what to make of this. I don't know if she's laughing at me because she's just like, yeah, I've wondered that too. Or if there's like a genuine crazy reason for him to have done all that. I don't know. Man, Orugio might be one of the only people to ever experience more than like 2 memory wipes. How do we know there aren't side effects from this? You know how like you can get like 2 x-rays and be fine, but the x-ray tech has to stand in the like little room to be protected because if they were exposed to all those x-rays, they would get cancer and die. That kind of thing. So I'm going to be keeping my eyes so peeled. My watchful eyes are on this watchful eye for any brain fog, memory issues, illness, like anything. It's so, y'all, it's so good. It's so juicy. that he's been wiping the mind of his government assigned mandatory reporter who also happens to be his like boy best friend slash like live-in situationship. And oh, it's so messy. And I love it. I love it. In the words of my 2-year-old nephew, what's this mess is? I did have this thought, and the more I think about it, the more I think I might be right. The only way that this could be any better is if we had a level of consent to it. Now, see, I'm conflicted because I'm messy, okay? I love it when things are complicated and people are mad at each other and there's no easy solution, okay? I love the mess. So I would love it if Kiefer was just doing this. But I had this thought that like, okay, the one thing that could make this situation better is if Ulrugio wanted this. If the first time, if he was the one, like, okay, this fits together with my Tower of the Tomes theory, where they both made it inside and Ollie doesn't remember. Okay, so they both make it inside. They both learn some crazy information. Ollie is like, I can't know this. I need you to wipe my mind. And if I find out again, you need to wipe my mind again and again and again. Consider it. Consider it, okay? It's still messy if that's what happened. It absolves some of the mess, but it can still be messy. But like, more than anything, I just think it makes sense. I kind of like the messier version where Ollie doesn't know and didn't like consent to any of this. But this one makes too much sense to me because that's something that Ollie would do. We've seen how much he cares, right? How selfless he is. And what's crazy, oh, what's insano crazy style is that we know that witches design their own caps. So Kiefer, when he became a grown-up witch and he designed his own cap, he designed his cap with this secret spell slot in it for the express purpose of wiping the minds of Ulrugio and anyone else who might find out his secrets. That's diabolical. I feel a little bit sick. And like he has to take his cap off to do it. He has to remove the symbol of a pointed cap witch to do forbidden magic. I told you I was going to be paying attention to when people take their hats off. I knew that would be important. And yet, despite all of this, I stand with my canceled wife. I don't think he would do this unless he thought it was absolutely necessary. I still trust him. I know he's going to be dishonest, but I know he's going to do right by his girls. I know there are things he can't speak about, and those things are tormenting him, but I know that he still loves his family, and he's still an excellent teacher, and he's going to want to do right by them as much as he can. Here's some art that me and my nephew did together. He did the background and I did the lines. I was so stunned by everything that happened in chapter 40. I mean, even the first chapter with the discovery of Kiefer as a boy, and then chapter 39, everything with Ollie. It's just so rich. I tricked 2 book club members into reading these volumes in front of me, which was maybe a little manipulative and malicious, but hey, I learned from the best. This volume actually had the first of our readers go from new reader to spoiler reader. I had a feeling this would happen at some point. I didn't know the story though, so I didn't know what would kind of trigger this, but I thought certainly there's going to be a handful of people that don't want to do the week to week thing and will just binge at some point, and I'll have to shift them from new reader to spoiler reader. Shout out to Christy for being our first one. I'm sure there will be more in the future. I just want to read some excerpts from Christy's post because this is really awesome. This just says everything that I have been feeling. I can't drag my eyes away from the catastrophe happening in chapter 40. It's all I can think about. Nothing could have prepared me for the bone-deep horror that this chapter brought. The terrifying whiplash from Ulrugio's beautiful trust, love, deep concern, and abiding care, his complete openness and willingness to take on whatever burden Kiefer is dealing with, and Kiefer seeming to finally open up and start to let him in, to the utterly foreboding black background panel of Kiefer, you know the one, and the intense scenes detailing the planned, horrifying violation that follows. It feels like there's no way out now. This is an action that, once taken, has locked Kiefer onto a path I don't want him to follow. It has damage that can't be undone. It's a violation that is intimate and devastating. He just unflinchingly took his best friend's memories, and it was clearly not the first time. There has often been a feeling of distance in his interactions with Ulrugio that seemed inexplicable. He's keeping him at arm's length, and why? It's not just that he's a private person with a dangerous vendetta. He's desperate and racked with guilt and self-loathing, and it seems he's keeping secrets so he doesn't have to erase Ulrugio's memories. But I can't help but be drawn in by his sincere love for Orgio because he really does love Orgio. He really is his friend. Maybe it's cognitive dissonance to say that, but deep down, I really believe it. I have to. What I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Oh, it's so. We got two song recs out of this volume. One from me, and that's "Love Took Me Down to the River to Silence Me" by Little Green Cars, and another one from Zaro, and that is "Drowning Lessons" by MCR. Tomorrow we'll do it again. After reading all of this, I went back to volume 2 and took a look at the chapter that's Orgio's introduction and where Kefri manipulates him into letting him keep Coco as an apprentice and not turning her over to the Knights Morales by saying, if you erase her memory, you'll have to erase mine too. First of all, foul. Second of all, Ollie has a visceral reaction to Kefri saying that. Like a why the hell would you even say that kind of thing? And knowing, and I don't even know if what I'm saying will get answers yet because the story isn't finished. So there are things that maybe I'm right about, things that maybe I'm wrong about, things that I will know whether I'm right or wrong, but other things that I won't know because they won't be published for another 5 years. Smoked my cigarette. Okay, on to volume 8. Apologies, volume 8. You were always going to get the short end of the stick because how do you follow up something like that? I will try to give this one the time it deserves, but also I have to be at work in an hour. Tarta shows up and is like, hey, do you want to help me run the stall at Silver Eve? My grandpa threw out his back. We're in a really good spot for the festival. We just need more hands. Kefri's back on dad mode, telling Tarta, you shouldn't have come here alone. I want you to spend the night because I don't want you to go back so late. Ollie's checking in, watchful eye mode, like, hey, is everything okay at home with your grandpa out? It's business as normal, and that's devastating from both of them. But now we get to learn that Silver Eve was once kind of a farmer's market for contraptions and spells and has now turned into like the biggest festival, and it's held at the Capitol. It's a huge event. The girls are so excited at the prospect of helping Tarta run the stall. The thought of making their own contraptions to sell. They're like, we couldn't leave Tarta. We couldn't leave him hanging out to dry. And so even with tons on Ollie's plate and Kefri is still injured, they decide, we're gonna do it. Everybody's celebrating, but Agate looks rather pensive. And of course, Ollie notices. Tarta has a bit of a bad attitude when Kefri says, hey, I'm gonna need you to spend the night because I don't want you going home alone in the dark. And Kefri's also like, I will take you back home personally myself in the morning. Tarta's like, I don't want you to treat me like a child. Kefri's like, well, I know in his mind, he's like, well, you are a child. But he handles this situation with a little more grace. He says, I completely understand how you feel. I was also a child once. We get this little panel of like Belle snatching him by the scruff as he's trying to sneak out. I love it. I would love a full volume of just Kefri and Belle 20 years ago and all the things that little Kefri got up to and how Belle was trying to wrangle this unruly child with no memories and probably no like concept of anything or respect for any of witch society, trying to figure it all out. That'd be awesome. Miss Shirahama, if you please. But anyway, Kefri tells Tarta, it's not that I lack faith in you, Tarta. Adults just lack faith in the surrounding world. And so if you want my help with Silver Eve, I am afraid you will have to just put up with my tendency to worry. Kefri kind of frames this as if like he's the problem or he's the annoyance. It's a very tender thing to do for a child who doesn't like Kefri very much. Tarta goes to hang out with Coco. She's shown him all her spells and stuff. He wants to make her a pen. They kind of have this little like flirting moment, which I couldn't really care less about. Coco seems rather oblivious. Agate walks in and she's like, hey guys. And Tarta leaves all flustered, and Agate's just like, mm-hmm. Coco and Tarta are hanging out in the morning, talking about how magic has turned the things they can't do into the things they can do. Now that Tarta is officially a witch, he can fly, he's allowed to do a lot more things that he couldn't do. But he still doesn't have a master. He's not someone's apprentice yet. Kefri connects the window way and then takes Tarta back home. As they're walking through town, though, Kefri gets apprehended by a doctor. Me and my roommate have been referring to this guy as Hospital Laios because he looks kind of like Laios and Faline from Dungeon Meshi. But Hospital Laios can practically like sniff out Kiefer's injuries. He like walks up to him. He's like, "You're wounded. Come inside. Let me freshen you up." So Tarta and Coco just kind of have to hang out at the hospital while Kiefer's getting treated. They're about to go pay Grandpa Noah a visit when somebody tries to take his seal chair down the stairs and takes quite the tumble. But fortunately, there were two little witches there to catch him. That's right, Custis is back. Everybody applaud. Everybody applaud for Custis right now. And then we have a little bit of like a Spider-Man pointing moment where everyone's like, wait, you know him, and you know him, and you know her? Custis is so happy to see Coco again. He owes his life to her. One of the doctors takes Custis back to his room. His legs still don't work. And that's when Custis, over her shoulder, says, "Hey, Coco, you should come play with me and Tarta. We've been studying apothecary." Yeah, you heard that right. Medicine and witches. Never supposed to be combined. But here Tarta is, barely even a witch and still breaking all the rules. And he kind of guilts Coco into this. Now that she knows, he's like, "Hey, you can't tell anyone. You can't tell my grandpa. You can't tell your master. You can't tell anyone." And he disappears into the black background. No little German boy. And then when Kiefer shows back up, he's like, "Hey, Coco, is everything okay?" Because she looks kind of, conflicted. And she's like, "Everything's fine. Just two liars lying to each other. I love to see it." The thing is, if it were probably anyone other than Tarta, I wouldn't be so concerned. But Tarta knows nothing about magic. And you know how people say you have to know the rules before you can break them? Tarta is not even an apprentice. He is probably one of the last people that I would want messing around with breaking the rules. If it were a grown adult, if it was like, I don't know, a Lyra or Belle or somebody that like knew what they were doing and knew the limits of things and why certain things were forbidden and what could cause serious trouble and could take responsibility for that trouble if they were caught, I would not really be concerned. Because, yeah, I do agree that it's kind of stupid to keep magic and medicine so separate. But at the same time, we have seen that the reason that the magic and medicine are separate is because people were like doing eugenics, okay? I just don't know if Tarta has the awareness of what he's doing. Not necessarily that what he's doing is particularly evil or wrong, but just how bad things could go. What he's doing might not be safe. And he is roping other kids into that and telling them not to tell other adults. And that just does not sit right with me. Not only for his physical safety and whatever kind of magic or medicinal things could get mixed up and could go wrong, but also just for his safety in general if the Knights Morales were to find out. We get to see that Tarta and Custis met when Custis was being accosted by these contraption thieves and his seal chair broke, and then Tarta came in with some wood glue and fixed it. Notably, Tarta takes Custis's hand to help him back up. It is not the action of the taking of a hand that violates the principles, but when we have seen a witch taking a non-witch's hand, 3 different times in this story, so far it has always been framed as a violation of the principles. Meanwhile, back at home, Ollie is sweeping with the broom that makes you bodacious. I don't know what they were feeding him in this volume, but it was crazy. And he talks to the girls about this contraption he made that he's going to have to scrap. It's a fireball that can keep you warm, but is not dangerous. Like, you can hold it and touch it. And it has all the properties of fire. It looks exactly like fire, but it won't hurt you. And the girls are like, "Well, isn't that a good thing?" And he says, "No. Because what happens when we have 2 identical types of fire in society, and some children aren't taught to respect the inherent danger of fire. And if you grow up around a cold flame all the time, you might walk straight into the fireplace at someone else's house. And you can't always rely on adults to teach children the difference. So I'm not going to put something that dangerous onto the market." I really liked this. I like the sense of responsibility that he has for the unintentional ill uses or even just societal ills that something like that might bring about. And yet, I also really appreciate, let me pull up some of the notes here from Sun Feathers, giving some pushback to this, how kind of blind to certain people's needs this could be. Because for someone like Custis, who grew up on the street and had nothing and was legit like hunting vultures to survive, we'll see that later in this volume, a heatless fire would have been awesome. Having access to something like that could have really changed his life. I think Ollie's idea here is that it's so indistinguishable from real fire, and that's why it can't go to market. I don't think that the concept of a heatless fire is inherently unmarketable. I think someone said something about like if the flames were a different color or something, or if it didn't look exactly like fire, if it was just some kind of glowing orb that had the properties of fire, that is something that could then both fill the need that people might have for a safer version of fire while keeping it visually distinct from fire and not creating that danger of children mixing the two up. So I really appreciated Sunfeather's pushback to this idea, how it's well-meaning but kind of comes from a place of ignorance or privilege, not really taking into consideration the non-magical material needs of someone in poverty. Another point here for my Silverwood's conspiracy theories, when Kiefer's talking about how spells have the power to reshape the world for good or for ill. There's Serpentback Cave, there's the Dada Mountains, and Silverwood trees. Those things are not natural. It is straight up over the garden wall in here. And Coco has just been out of it ever since, well, for a while, but like ever since talking to Tarta, really. We're back at the hospital visiting Grandpa, and then hanging out with Custis and Tarta again. This is when we learn that Custis and Dagda are traveling minstrels, basically. They made their living traveling around playing music. And Custis, in particular, was a dancer. Dagda is not Custis's biological father. However, he does refer to Custis as his son. He picked Custis up off the streets and loves him a lot and is not willing to just leave him behind as he's injured. Healthcare is expensive, but Dagda won't give up on him. And so Custis is studying apothecary so that he can know which herbs he can sell for money. But he's also trying to learn how to read because he doesn't know how to read yet. So Tarta is trying to teach him how to read first. It's just such an uncomfortable situation here with these two little clueless, privileged white kids and this disabled brown kid who is talking about how he grew up with nothing and has had to fight tooth and nail just to survive. But that's just the way things are, and he's made his peace with it. Coco tries to tell him there's hope for everyone. Just because you're not born a witch doesn't mean you can't. And then she kind of like, oh no, backtracks from that. And she's like, I'm just saying there's hope for everyone. And Custis just gives her this haunting look. Like, yeah, maybe you're right. If I had a school and a house and food and money and people to take care of me and I could cast spells, maybe you're right, but I don't have any of that. I don't even have legs that work. And after this very valid crash out, Custis leaves to go back to his room. He reunites with Dagda, who is covered in blood because he's kind of turned to doing some unsavory mercenary work to put food on the table for them. Custis just begs him to stop and to leave him. And Coco and Tarta see this whole thing. And that's when they decide that if they can't fix what's wrong with Custis, they will reshape the world that Custis lives in to accommodate him. If the whole world's against him, let's reshape it into a place where he can belong. And so they get to work, trying to figure out how do we improve his life without casting a spell on his body. We don't even know how to do that, and it's not allowed. So how can we improve this seal chair to give him more access to things? He can't really manage stairs. Even the cobblestone streets are pretty rough. And then they land on the idea of flight. It's a whole hustle and a bustle as they're working on their contraption. And we get what I think is the greatest panel of all time. Dad and the dog he said he didn't want. Agate seems a little in her head about some of this stuff. It's almost as if she can't understand Coco's excitement about the project she's working on. Almost as if Agate has never experienced the joy of creation, despite being someone who is very good at casting spells. Coco falls asleep at her desk, and Agate puts a blanket around her shoulders and takes a peek at what Coco's doing, and it looks very simple and rudimentary. And she wonders, why is Coco dealing with such simple spells? When Coco and Tarta finish their thingy, Tarta brings it to Custis in the hospital. Custis is so excited to see him, he rams him headfirst in his seal chair and apologizes for storming off before. Tarta says to Custis, "You showed me what about this world is painful for you. Thanks to that, I'm aware of one more facet I'd have otherwise not noticed." That's really beautiful, as one disabled person to another. You know, Tarta's disability is visual. And so, even though he's disabled, he never really maybe considered what a physical paralysis disability might mean for someone. So, he takes Custis out to the field to meet up with Coco. But somebody, some gotcha game reject, is watching them from the woods. Custis talks about how he's always believed in fate, that he was fated to be a child of misfortune all his life. This is where we see him hunting vultures that were scavenging off a dead human body. And yet, when he ran into Dagda and heard him singing a song about throwing off the shackles of fate, Custis wonders if that's true. After all, you've got to believe the chains of fate exist in order to have something to grab onto and throw off. It's not better to accept things the way they are, because things can change. Custis gets his wings, a cloak of flight and 2 crutches to help him walk. Dagda comes out to see his boy flying, and they have this beautiful exchange. Custis telling him, "Look at how free I am. I'm free as a bird. Did you see me?" And Dagda reaching up for his boy and saying, "Yes, I see it all." But after this beautiful scene, Custis shows them what he's been learning how to write. And what he writes is that he's sorry. Coco and Tarta, he says, "You didn't choose to be born the way you are any more than I did. You came into this world as witches. It's not like you chose your fate." Ooh, and Coco's having a hard time with that. Later, when alone with Tarta, Tarta tells her, "I wonder if I should have taught him how to use magic. It could change his life completely. He wouldn't have to fight and struggle so much. I know the principles are supposed to be absolute, but I just don't know if they're right. It seems that the people who are most desperately in need are the ones who could use the power." And Coco's thinking, that sounds a lot like what I heard from that brim cap. Meanwhile, Custis and Dagda move on and are ambushed by some ruffians. Dagda straight up dies. Well, okay, he's not entirely dead, but he is at death's door. He practically throws Custis into the sky to have him fly away. And when the slaughter is over, Custis comes back down to the ground, and there's nothing to be done. He just holds Dagda as he dies. And that's when little gotcha girl from before stumbles across the scene, speaking to her master, who we don't see, but I assume is just on a either in this little orb or on a 24/7 FaceTime call with this girl. And this girl asks Master Restis if she has the permission to offer help to these dying people. And that's when Custis is like, "You can't help me. You can't heal people. What are you going to do?" And the girl says, "That's a lie. I can help." And then we see Coco drop an ink bottle and Kefri perform the counterclock spell to rewind time for just the ink pot and unsmash it and put it back together. And at the same time that the counterclock spell is being cast on the ink bottle, we see the same thing happening to Dagda. This girl reaches out to Custis and says, "Let us show you the true nature of magic. It's a miracle able to grant any of the wishes you've held in your heart while gazing upon the nighttime star." Direct contrast to what Belle said, where magic is not just a tool for you to have anything you want. It is interesting to me, though, that whatever healing magic Ininia and Restis did was not true healing. It's a counterclock spell for Dagda. So does that mean that at some point his time will run out and he'll just collapse and die? I don't know. And then we get a little bonus chapter of the girls talking about clothes. They're getting festival clothes together. They all get these little historical pieces to try on. And Tetya and Agate get into a bit of an argument where Agate's like, "What's the big deal? It's just clothes." And Tetya's like, "You don't understand. Like, clothes are magic too. Their expression, they can turn you into something else. I really don't want you to call it a waste of time when it's something that I love and it means a lot to a lot of people, even if you don't really care about it. And Agate apologizes. And then all the girls can have fun together, appreciating different aspects of the clothes. Riche is really picky. Tatia loves everything. Coco's the daughter of a seamstress, so she knows a lot. And now that Agate knows what to look for, that clothes are like spells too, she won't settle for anything less than perfect. And that's about it. I don't have much to say in terms of notes on this one, and I also don't want this video to be 5,000 hours long. And since this was a lot of setup, I think a lot of the things we're talking about here will get paid off in the next couple of volumes. So I'll spare you the length of all of this. Also, I have to go to work soon and my phone's running out of storage. I think the big theme here is that a lot of people's lives would be changed if magic were more accessible. But we have seen how horribly things go when magic is completely unregulated. And so, like Coco with the book in the previous volume, what's the third way? What's the arrow down the middle that's going to get us on that right path? I get the like don't cast magic on the body thing. That's very interesting and I love that we're interrogating that. But I also think that if magic is a service, if it is meant to serve the people and it is meant to make the world vibrant, to fix people's problems, then not healing someone when you have the capacity to do that would be a violation of that basic principle. And like, just because the pointed caps are wrong about something doesn't necessarily mean the brim caps are right. I think I'm going to wrap it there, and I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Bye.